Hello everybody. Welcome to another speedrun game against Arab Anthony, rated 1666. He plays the Sicilian, so we won't get to enjoy King's Gambit this game, unfortunately. But you're going to face the Sicilian a lot more than you're going to want to face it, because it's not as fun as the regular King's Gambit. So we just start off with our main setup. First three moves are nearly always the same. He goes e6, which prepares the pawn break d5. Not so impressive. We'll play the accelerated Rosolimo. Rosolimo is where you bring your bishop out and take his knight. So we're going to do that. Accelerated because instead of the pawn being on f2, it's already on f4. And in the regular Rosolimo, you do try to play f4 after you're castled and such. So this is just like a sped up version, accelerated. So is he going to leave the knight? Is he going to move it? Is he going to ignore me and push a pawn? All of these are options. And I mean, there's nothing to memorize. Like, I don't have anything memorized, zero. So, I mean, I'm just going to play no matter what he does, according to just normal chess logic, and see what happens. Which goes to tell you you really don't need to memorize, like, way too much stuff, right? If I can play at a decent level without the, memorizing, having anything memorized here, then that means it's possible. So, d5, as expected, just breaking in the center. I'm going to chop the knight as it doubles his pawns, and our bishop won't be locked in or on a bad square. So there's some tension in the center. You never want to take and fix his center. That's exactly what he wants. He doesn't want to take because that would leave him with two double isolated pawns. So you could push, but I prefer to push when it gains a tempo. So if I just castle, I'm hanging a pawn. So we need to defend this pawn. d3 makes a lot of sense. This does allow a queen trade, but then he would have two sets of doubled pawns. I don't mind that at all. Bishop e7, just trying to castle. He's going to have to put his knight here at some point, at which point we can always push. But first, let's castle and get our king to safety, as that's priority number one. Well, it's not priority number one, it's priority number one right here. Priority number one is putting a pawn in the center at the start of a chess game. That's priority number one. Priority number two is to develop your kingside pieces, like we did. Priority number three is then to castle. But since we did the first two, now the priority isn't to develop the queen side, it's to castle first, right? So anyway, he develops the knight as expected. So we could gain space for free, or we could leave that square open for our pieces if we want. However, what's the threat? It's currently hanging. So in light of that, I mean, you had other moves, but you know me, I like gaining space if it's available. Now his knight goes to a weird looking square. I mean, it's fine, but it's not doing much, and we can continue our development. Um, let's bring the knight out, as knights before bishops makes a lot of sense. It's a close quarters piece and needs to be closer to the action. We want him to play d4, right? So some of you might be scared of d4. We want that. We would love to go to e4 with our knight, right? Big improvement. So he just castles. More reasonable. Don't put your bishop here and walk into a fork, right, guys? So bishop d2 makes a lot more sense. Every desirable strategic move, like strategically you might want your bishop here, affecting the center. But every strategic move you make has to be tactically checked to make sure it's possible. So he goes f6, not a terrible idea because he wants to break down our construction. And we would like to maintain some type of stronghold on the e5 point if possible. Also, what's the drawback? Weakens squares and most importantly the e6 point. Not even just the pawn, but the square itself. Okay, so I mean, it's not a threat as it's defended enough times. We do need to get our queen in the game and connect the rooks. So queen e1 has some visibility. Queen e2. I mean, with the knight in the way, it doesn't have the visibility. So I'm going to go queen e1 because I don't really plan on moving the knight anytime soon. So I'd rather just get it out this way. It also supports the center. It also comes with a cool threat of if I take his pawn, unless he takes with the rook, he'll be hanging this pawn with check, right? Which you may or may not notice. But for now, he makes this move. What's the threat? He's hitting the pawn and looking at our king. Can we move our king and give him the pawn on purpose? And then go here and hit his queen, develop for free. He has to go here. We improve the rook tiny bit. Queen has to go, I don't know, let's say he goes here. Takes away the square from his bishop, which I like. He can't go to the dark square because of discovered attacks. That will win us the game. Yeah, I'm going to hang that pawn and go king h1. Like a chess player who's trying to improve, right? I do this stuff because I want to improve at chess. Just auto defending, I'm definitely not going to get better at chess. That's like the weakest, lamest move. It might work and be fine, but I'm not going to improve that way. I need to take more risks, do more critical lines, tempt higher rated opponents into making these moves, right? You see, he doesn't even do it. Instead, he just develops. That's pretty sensical. And he definitely wants to play c4 and break this down, which he knows the idea of what he's supposed to do, which is a bit annoying. However, he didn't address this threat that we said we had. Now, if we take, ideally he wants to take with a minor piece, not a rook, right? But he's kind of forced to take with a rook. And what can we do there? Unclear. What happens if we flush his queen? Is there any purpose to that whatsoever? Probably not. It looks like he just moves his queen somewhere and no. What else? F5? F5. So much stuff to look at. But let's say he, I don't know, takes it. We could push, which is super awkward for his pieces since f6 is taken. And if he takes the other way, and we take this way, we're hitting his knight. I don't know, f5 might be really strong, or I might be way too lazy and looking at it correctly. Otherwise, we could just try this move, and when he takes back, you could stick your knight in the center, but that gives him easy trades. We could develop our queen. If we go here, does this... I'm going to go for f5. It's the most energetic move in the position. It opens up my bishop diagonal towards h6, so a queen here, they coordinate. And it doesn't give him time to play c4 or take the pawn or anything. Like, he's clearly trying to make good moves, which is, what he should be doing. But this needs to be addressed. This is way too much tension in the center. Okay, so he takes that way. I thought I could take here, though. And when his knight moves, he'll be undefending this pawn. This should be really good for me. What am I missing? Hold on. He takes, undefends this square, undefends this square, opens up his rook, no threats. Let's hit his knight, as I don't see what he does. Does this work? I mean, I could take that pawn, and if he takes... Oh wait, my rook is hanging. Okay, he counters my knight, but this is not a good move. He was supposed to go for c4 pawn break, not d4, which is not a pawn break. But let's just calculate. If I get a knight, he gets a knight. But then I get a pawn on the long diagonal, immediately threatening his weaknesses, defending my b2 weak pawn. That's super strong for me. But I have so many strong moves. I feel like, well, I guess if you jump to the desirable e4 square, you're now blocking your queen. Not that it's a big deal, but then if he moves his knight, let's say to f6, I don't think you maximized your position. I think taking the knight definitely is better. Because if he takes, he creates 4 pawn islands, a bunch of isolated pawns, doubled pawns. I'm up a pawn, but that's not the point. I don't care about my d pawn, my d7 pawn. I'm most likely not going to be able to keep that, right? It resembles another one of our games when he couldn't move his rooks, but that was an entirely different position. This is a weak pawn. It's not going to do anything. And, I mean, you can queen it for fun, but don't because it'll help him develop a rook. Instead, this pawn is hit 3 times. And we're up a pawn with a much better long-term pawn structure. So we have a much better position. He has the bishop pair, but it does not compensate for his crazy pawn weaknesses and the fact we're about to take this super important central pawn. Now, if we take it with the queen, we're maximizing how bad his pawns are. I did not explain that correctly. Hold on, let me just look at all the captures quick. I'm running out of time. I'm just going to take with the queen to develop a new piece. But my point is, if we get the queens off the board, his weak pawns will be accentuated, right? Whereas with the queens on the board, he can try to get counterplay with the queen and bishop pair, the bishop pair being his only asset in the position. So by removing queens, that has to benefit white. So let's keep the bishop on this beautiful solid square and move forward the close quarters combatant piece, right? Which opens up our rooks. Now our position looks super harmonious. Everything is perfectly placed other than this pawn. But it is defended now, so maybe it is, right? Trading the bishop for the knight cannot be a good decision, so we don't mind it. However, he might do it just to try to scoop the pawn. However, he's also hanging material. However, it's a doubled pawn that's not going anywhere that I don't really care about. It is a free pawn, though. Anyway, we could just bring our rook in the game. That's super strong. And... or should I just take this? That actually threatens the queen, which I wasn't paying attention to because I really dismissed this pawn, but I mean, he's kind of just letting it live. So yeah, no, actually this is devastating then. Because what does he do about that? He has to kind of go back. Oh, that doesn't work though. He attacks my knight, but now we can start a series of tactics. But the point being, if we ever get a queen, we want him to take with the rook. We take the rook and he gets the knight and we win the exchange. So how do we do that? Well, the only thing covering it's the bishop. So take the bishop. Now the only thing covering this is the rook. He could intermezzo this, but again, then the bishop protects the queening square. He finds it, but I think he missed this. So there goes the exchange. And now we have bishop for rook, plus we're up a pawn, plus his pawn structure is worse than ours. We have all of our win conditions. We should bring our last piece into the obvious square. We'd never need to move our pawns unless he specifically targets one and you want to defend it, that's fine. Which he does. But before you make the automatic move of moving the pawn, ask yourself, can I create, if you're following proper chess logic, it's prophylaxis, and then after that, it's forcing moves. After we determine that this threat level is low, we're looking for forcing moves with a higher threat level. That's how chess logic works. So can we attack the bishop? You can, but he can counter it if it's on a light square, so be careful because then he'll hit your rook and your pawn, and maybe another pawn. So although you might have more active moves, I'm just going to play b3 anyway, because I'm running low on time and I don't feel like calculating this, hit this, hit that. I don't want to calculate it. Just go here. He can attack this pawn, which is the semi-open file. He can attack this pawn, which is the semi-open file. There's nothing to attack anymore for his rook unless he goes and tries to zigzag, but that's so slow. He goes here, which tells me he wants to go to the other diagonal. Which one? I don't know which one, but this move looks funny. I definitely want to infiltrate with my rooks. So let me go to the most forward available square. And it comes with a threat. So I'm improving a piece for free. Ugh. Ugh. He played such a good game, and to make a move like that. Ugh. Gross. You can't become 2000 if you're going to make moves like that, just for your guys' reference. So I'm going to double the rooks, although that does let his king out, because he can easily just defend the bishop or move it. I can't double this way, which is the desirable way, horizontally. So let's just get behind this pawn and see what he does. And then we can move our other rook and horizontally go this way. We have to use dark squares. So this rook here is kind of misplaced. It's good in the sense it restricts his king. Really cool. But otherwise, like if I want to make progress, I want to put my rooks here. And then just threaten this. So he moves his bishop, but I mean, I'm just going to take this pawn. You don't have to. You could have done the reroute. Now he stops our reroute. Okay, he wants to come in here now. Fine. So we don't want that, right? So how do we stop it? Well, actually, it doesn't matter. I mean, if he comes in here, he's still not threatening anything. So it doesn't really matter, actually. We did want our rook over here, though. Funnily enough. Although if he does that, he's going to lose the game to some type of back rank thing, probably. Decisions. I could just run my pawn up the board. I could get my king in the game. Okay, let me get my king in the game. You have to do it through this way, because if you go this way, he can just endlessly check you. Perpetual. Now he goes here, but what's the threat? Oh, there is none. But he's happy, because it looks like he's active, but it's not. So what we do is we give him this check. He undefended the back rank. He now has to put a piece here. But guess what? Ta-da! I just take your bishop. Then I go here. Your check is meaningless, and now you're just down 3 pawns. Not a threat. You see, we take the bishop off the board. He can't move his king. We're up 3 pawns. Super easy conversion. So that's why I did it. With a bishop and rook, he can use 2 pieces to coordinate and create threats. But with 1 piece, it's a joke, right? So let's go behind the pawn. Well, if we go behind, he'll just blockade. Let's go to the side of the pawn. We can make progress just infinitely. Okay, well, watch. He's going to go here, here, here. Yeah, that works. Because the rook defends laterally. He's just like poking and prodding, but his rook is completely misplaced here. Yeah, so he has to go back, and we could just push the pawns. When you have passed pawns, you just push them. When they're connected, they're super strong. And I want you guys to see in how many of my speedrun, again, this is not a threat. I don't know why he keeps targeting that pawn, but I want you guys to see in how many of my speedrun games I'm sacking my rook for a minor piece. So many of my games, right? When it comes to the conversion, like when I'm already have my win condition, right? So he finally resigns because these pawns are worth a rook. They're worth more than a rook because your opponent has to sack a rook and you'll still be left with a pawn. Unless his king's there and he gets both. But anyway, they're about worth a rook. 2 pawns on the 6, they're worth a rook. Keep it in your mind. Because that's a huge material discrepancy because your brain thinks, oh, 2 pawns is 2, but it's actually 5. So anyway, let's go through the game. Cool game. One mistake, but 95%. I'm surprised we played the opening so well because I really don't know about that. I mean, we do have a mistake, but like I don't know any theory, so it's a bit of a weird position when you play a 4. So let's see. We go for the King's Gambit pawn duo, and then development and center. Development and center. And trying to get, because we know ahead of time before the game even starts, we want to create this pawn chain. We want to get the bishop, rid of the bishop, so it's not stuck inside, which is also playable, by the way. Okay. So we go down this line. I mean, you don't have to do this. You can do something like queen e2, just defend your pawn, avoid the queen trade. It's fine. But we throw this in because it's part of our plan. And now, center and development. I'm just curious because just so you guys know, it's so hard to understand in a way that you're going to be able to use in other games because it's extremely position specific, but c4 is always the idea for black here. It's basically just to undermine this little pawn chain and give him some counterplay, but it's going to be hard to apply in any other situation, but it's super important in these Sicilian games, so you should know it. That's what you should always know is it should be coming. And if he never plays it, you should be happy. And if he ever plays the D pawn like he did in the game, you should be very happy because that gives your knight a beautiful mansion on c4. Anyway, king safety, development, even game. Gaining space for free and with the clearance idea of putting our knight here in the future one day. Development center. And remember, we hope he pushes d4, right? So you want to know which moves you're excited about, which moves you don't want to see, right? We don't want to see c4. We do want to see d4. And what's the big deal about c4? It's not that it's a big deal. It's just that this is like he has two pawns. He's going to be able to break this pawn chain down, and so your position won't be as solid. So if you try something like d4, which would otherwise be like winning if he didn't have another c pawn, because this structure is just way too solid. f5 will come one day, but he does have another c pawn, so it's not like I mean, you're totally fine. Your position's great. What I'm saying is this is how black aims for counterplay. Anyway, he castles. And development, you can't do center because it hangs, right? So just development. You've seen me in other games in different speed runs when we play the Sicilian like this. I've done things like b3. But even then, the engine's like, you know what? Black's best move is still c4. So you could play b3. It is an option. But I just develop. Okay, so he breaks this down. So you can go e takes, bishop takes, and now you see how this pawn is super weak. So you can easily just develop and attack it. Not that you're going to win it, but you're going to maintain control like in advanced French of the e5 square. So if he tries to defend it, you jump in because the last thing you want strategically is for him to push. Open up his bishop, connect all of his pawns properly, fill this hole which is supposed to be for your army and put it under his territory. Right? You don't want him to claim that square. So you, oh no, I don't even know where I was. Fangul. Yikes, we were just at the beginning of the game. I feel like I've been talking for hours. Oh yeah. Anyway, my whole point was if you take, you want to put your knight on e5 and use that as a stronghold, a base of operations for your army to, um, like a focal point to attack his king. Or just control the center. Anyway, we develop. Now this may look weird, like, is this really developing? But yeah, it is, because you're going to go out here. It's temporary. It's not a permanent spot. And it could be a permanent spot if, depending on what happens, because this is hanging. It supports e5. So he goes here. So knight a4 is a move here. Interesting. I know I've seen it, but like considering this pawn is not hanging, it's like whatever. Let's say he just goes queen a6 and then you have to support the knight, and it's like you're back in this whole thing, which I guess is a structure against this specific thing because it helps against this, but it's a little weird. Equally as good, you could have gone down this line where this would hang. Although I thought he had to take with the rook, it says the same eval is for any of the pieces. So I guess you can't take this. Oh, well, A, I'm dumb because if you take with the knight, that defends. But what about bishop takes? Why is that good? He just moves over. And apparently that free pawn... What? Why wouldn't that matter? If I move my queen, oh, is it because this guy's hanging in, like... And maybe this guy afterwards? Maybe. Yeah, maybe this is just way too greedy. Interesting. Your queen's in fire. Maybe you give him some fancy move. There's also this. Yeah, maybe you have to attend to some more stuff, actually. I mean, we didn't do it. I was curious about it in the game. King 8. Oh, this was our one mistake of the game because we wanted to lure him into taking this, right? which may be which the engine says is his best move. But for humans, not a good idea. You will definitely give your opponent way too much play. The engine wants knight a4, or even e takes f, bishop takes f, and then king h1. So somehow my king h1 was a mistake, but if I improved his bishop, then it's not a mistake. Okay, engine. But anyway, my whole point with this move is takes. And if he takes, I go, boom. He has to go here. This is a little weird because it may walk into c4 in the future. But still, if we go here, you're easily giving him chances to go wrong. He has two squares to choose from. If he goes to this one, he falls prey immediately to discoveries and devastation. So he's kind of forced to go here, which takes away his bishop. And if the engine may say, oh, I like black here, but I don't. So I don't really care about the engine. Because the engine's not going to play this game. And I would rather be white, even though the engine says black's better. That's chess for you. Now maybe if I play this position and gain a lot of experience and know what black's supposed to do at that point and what white's supposed to do, then it can change. Like knowledge changes your evaluation of things. But with no knowledge and just what I know, I like black. I mean white. Anyway, king h1, prophylaxis. He doesn't take the pawn. He just develops, which is reasonable. Now f5. Okay, they still want e takes f6. So all this time, they really want me to just take this and open this up, which does make a lot of sense. But at the same time, I see. Now it makes more sense because the bishop undefends the knight. So now knight can't take because bishop doesn't defend. If bishop takes, then the knight hangs on check. So then now rook has to take for real. And we're back in this territory of b3, and the engine likes white here, as do I. But if we don't take and play f5, I also like this for white. So his best move is either knight takes e5 or e takes f. Right, take one of the pawns. I thought maybe e takes f might be his best try, but then we were going to go e6, which is dynamic. The point being, even though he takes a pawn, we don't want to take our pawn back and severely improve, I don't know, one of his minor pieces, right? He wants the f6 square. This is his favorite square for these three pieces right now. But if we push past and leave his pawn here and pawn here, rook is misplaced on f-file, bishop is stuck, knight is stuck. Now we're talking. He has to jump in the center. Again, we don't want to take and open up f6. We would avoid it or go somewhere else. And it's a super weird game, but it should be fun. So we play f5. He doesn't play the normal moves, and he immediately blunders. And I thought this was a blunder because of the tempo. We get the tempo on the knight. And then his central pawn hangs, which is quite important. So at this point, so he played very well, actually. He played super well until right here. So it's a completely even game. And then he blunders based on the tactics that we saw, that no matter where he moves his knight, he collapses. He tries to be fancy, and it goes from plus 2.3 to plus 4.7, twice as bad. His position got twice as bad because we find the best sequence, take his knight, he takes ours, boom. This position is so dominant. Like you guys can see his pawns are terrible. I don't need to explain that. His queen, entirely misplaced, now doing nothing with no king here and a protected b pawn. Bishop, oh, it's x-raying the rook, congratulations. No effect on the game. Doesn't matter at all. Like you can't do anything. Even if he goes here, I'm just going to ignore him. He still accomplished nothing. But most importantly, like this activity is insane. Okay, he tries to route the queen, but it's already game over. So free stuff for free, because this is a checkmate in one threat, right? So if he avoided the queen trade and took the pawn, checkmate in one, which I don't even think I mentioned in the game. So he takes the queen by force, and now this pawn's protected. We're at +5. We have perfect harmony, solid pawns, 2 pawn islands, everything's connected. He goes here, but Now we get to support the queen with further tactics. Of course, you could win the game without fancy stuff at this point since you're up 2 points of material. It's a great position. But if you are tactically alert, you should do this stuff. So we take free stuff for free because we're threatening a queen after a bishop takes. And we find the best move, forcing the queen through. Nothing he can do about it. You win in exchange this way, and now it's just baby town frolics. I'm not even going to go over this. It's a joke. So, good luck in your chess. Submit your rapid games in Discord or in the comments. See you in the next one, guys.